What is up, everyone? We are going to do a stream today on Jungian archetypes. And this is something I talked about recently, I think a few times. I think a few videos and a few streams we've talked about these, but they're just so interesting, honestly. And it's cool to kind of hear different takes on them because I think there's such a unique and individual idea that the more takes you hear on them, the more you dwell on them, the more they kind of solidify and maybe you get a better sense of what they really are. So, with that said, we're gonna get into the video. I actually just filmed a video on Jungian synchronicity. I'm either gonna release that after the stream or tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. That's a really fun topic. I didn't really it's not that long either, so check that out when you get a chance when you see it. But yeah, that's it. Let's get into the
Learn
video.
from the greatest philosophers and psychologists of
This is
history
too
to
loud.
improve your mind, character, and life. When you become an Academy of Ideas supporting member,
All right.
when a living organism is cut off from its roots, it loses a connection with the foundation of its existence and must necessarily perish. Carl Jung dedicated his life to a single goal, which, as he notes in his autobiography, was to penetrate into the secret of the personality.
That's such a that's such a deep yet concise definition of what Jung was trying to do. And I think to best understand Jung, I think you need to think non-linearly. You need to think like a poet. You need to parse the meaning through the in between the lines instead of exactly what's said. Because the thing about Jung that excites me so much is you read a philosopher, the philosopher tells you how to live. You read Jung, it's more of a broad framework that you can apply into your own life and apply for the sake of your development. I think it's such a fascinating and interesting topic, and it's just it's so cool. It really is. That's the only way to put it, and that's the only way to approach these ideas. It's almost with a reverence for the depth and the expansiveness of these concepts and the amount of results you can get if you begin to apply them into your own life.
To accomplish this task, he adopted the dictum of the great Roman poet Terence as his intellectual duty. Nothing human is alien to me. He probed the depths of the psyche like few before him, or few since, and what he came to realize was just how little we know about the nature of our own psyche. Our times, he wrote, characterized as they are by an almost total disorientation in regard to the ends of human existence, stand in need, above all else, of a vast amount of psychological knowledge.
Okay. This is going very slow, so I'm going to speed it up just a tad bit. I can hear my. Can you guys still hear me? What is this? I don't even know what this does. Hold on, let's check my audio. Okay. Um, so what Jung is talking about when he says archetypes, because I don't know if he's going to give a good explanation of them. How I like to see archetypes, I like to see them as images. I like to see them as ideas, concepts. And to explain this, I think we need to go to the Platonic ideal of forms, which is things are beyond our comprehension. What we see is only a mere representation. What we see is not exactly what we think we do. There's always something more. And this is the best way to define an archetype. So, like, what do you think a hero is? A hero is the easiest archetype. It makes the most sense. Like, in every society, there's some framework for what heroism is, some framework for what it means to be a good man or a good hero or a good soldier. Like, we all have these ideas and we all have these representations, and we can all kind of accumulate the same definition, but the image we see, the archetype we see is always quite out of reach. There's always something that exists beyond. There's always like a feeling, a sense of something more. And that's what Jung is talking about when he talks about archetypes. Like It's the images we see when we see a individual, when we see a category, when we see a profession. That's an archetype. They're only a handful. There's only so many. Jung's students broke it up into 12. But basically, think of it as images and think of it as images for the sense of how your mind can understand things.
In this video, we explore some of what Jung learned about the inner world of the psyche and examine the meaning behind his famous statement that we must strive to make the unconscious conscious. Everything in the unconscious, wrote Jung, seeks outward manifestation, and the personality too desires to evolve out of its unconscious conditions and to experience itself as a whole. Psyche is a term that has been used to refer to many things, from life
Just think of your psyche as everything that goes on in your mind. So things that go on, whether you know it or you don't. That's what Jung uses it for.
to breath to soul to spirit. But Jung uses this term in a more modern way to refer to the mind in its most comprehensive sense. The psyche, in other words, is the inner world of mental occurrences, and when Jung refers to something as psychic, what he means is that it is experiential in nature. Jung divided the elements of the psyche into two main categories:
Conscious and unconscious. What are you
those
gonna
that are
say?
conscious and those that
Conscious just means things you use on your day-to-day basis. Unconscious means things that you've experienced but can't really remember. They're things that affect your life, but they're not really present. They're not really apparent. So, like, a good example of this is when someone is afraid of public speaking. What that probably is either their parents or their school teacher when they're much younger reprimanded them for saying something wrong, and now they have a petrifying fear of being wrong in front of a crowd. So like that would be a good example of an unconscious force that controls who you are today. It's a very simple example, but like it can either be that simple or very, very deep and very, very dark.
are unconscious. We may suppose that human personality consists of two things, he explains. First, consciousness, and second, an indefinitely large hinterland of unconscious psyche. The elements of the psyche that
What's
possess
up,
the
Sahida?
quality
How's
of
everything?
consciousness are those that we are aware of, that are manipulable by acts of volition, can be reflected upon, and connected to other conscious thoughts, ideas,
Don't think of conscious like this. Conscious is just the things that you can remember right now, the things that you can pull from right now. Unconscious is like every single fact that you've ever learned that you've forgotten is in your unconscious. Everything that you've ever experienced, every conversation you've always had, anything that's been said in passing around you is somewhere locked within your mind, but we just don't have access to it because it's like our mind can only pick up so much. Our mind can only focus on so much. Like, if you need a good example of this, walk around your neighborhood and try to find something that you've never seen before. I promise you, you'll find a million things. And it's this idea. It's we only pick up what we want to see, and through this, it allows us to kind of focus our attention. And I mean, it's really like a defense mechanism because if our receptors, if our eyes, if our senses were picking up everything at all times, it would be impossible for us to make sense of anything. So it's just it's something that evolved out of necessity. What's it's late, can't sleep.
or impressions to
What
form
time
webs
is
of
it for you?
cognitive associations.
It's like 4
Unconscious
p.m.
elements of
here.
the psyche exist below the threshold of awareness, are uncontrollable by the will, incapable of being reflected upon, or as Jung wrote, I define the unconscious as the totality of all psychic phenomena that lack the quality of consciousness. The boundary between consciousness and the unconscious is fluid and ever changing.
So think of your dreams. Your dreams are like a sneak peek into your unconscious. Think of how weird they are, how all over the place they are. That's really what your unconscious is.
There does not exist a realm that is conscious and a separate realm that is unconscious. There exists a single realm of the psyche. To help us understand the difference between consciousness and unconsciousness, we can use the analogy of a spotlight that moves around a dark stage. The spotlight represents conscious awareness, and the stage is the totality of the
This
psyche.
chair is so
When the
uncomfortable.
spotlight illuminates certain mental contents or processes, they become conscious.
So
When it moves away
1:30?
from them,
Dude,
they
that is
return
not late. What are you talking about? Late, when you say late, that's like 4 a.m., 5 a.m. Like 1:30 is just like I don't know. I don't know if my sleep schedule's messed up, but that is not late.
to the dark state of the unconscious. Or as Jung explains, From the scientific standpoint, unconsciousness is simply a quality of certain psychic phenomena. One cannot even say that there is a definite class of psychic phenomena which regularly and under all circumstances have the quality of being unconscious. Anything may be or become unconscious. Anything you forget, or anything from which you divert your attention until it is forgotten, falls into the unconscious.
So this is what I was saying like probably 2, 3 minutes ago. It's don't think of the unconscious as something that's like always important. A lot of the times it's things that you just don't need for your day-to-day life. And then sometimes it's things that you don't want to remember. So that's where it becomes dangerous. That's where it becomes something that can control you because you're actively being affected by this memory that you can't even remember. And until you recognize it, until you can find the source, then you can't get to the root of the issue. And that's really what Jungian psychology is about. It's about getting to the root of the issue. Freudian psychology is very, I think, shallow for the sense that like it takes everything to be psychosexual. It takes everything to be the root cause of some repression, the root cause of something that you lack sexually. And it's a very weird idea. Whereas Jung is like, okay, let's dive deep into your memories. Let's dive deep into your psyche and really understand what it is that you're experiencing. Really understand where this comes from. Anything beyond one is cut off. Do you wake up early though? If you wake up early, then that's completely justified, but like I don't. I used to wake up early, but like it's hard when you I don't know, like if I was to get up early, it's like it's not for anything. Like there's no point for me to get up early.
The vast majority of the psyche
Also
exists in a
streaming's
state
messed it
of
up too.
unconsciousness. Consciousness, said Jung, no matter how extensive it may be, must always remain the smaller circle within the greater circle of the unconscious. An island.
So the vastness of your experience, there's only so much of it that you can remember. Because if you were forced to remember everything, then it would take away brain power from your day-to-day life. And this is the idea of it. Like there's only a certain amount of your brain that can be dedicated to things that you can actively use, whereas the rest of it has to be a storehouse for things that don't matter anymore.
Surrounded by the sea. Jung divided the contents of the unconscious into two main categories: the personal unconscious and the collective unconscious. The personal unconscious consists of elements that are a product of our individual history.
So the personal unconscious is like anything that you've ever experienced, whether you're aware of it or not. So like if someone had a conversation next to you like 3 years ago, that's somewhere in your brain. Even if you weren't aware of it, even if you weren't perceiving it, it's still in your head somewhere. Um, the collective unconscious is like think of the genetic makeup of your parents, your grandparents, their ancestors. Like there's some carryover, there's some ideas that are brought forward. It's also affected by whatever culture you're in, whatever demographic that you're in inside that culture. Like there's all of these factors that go to influence it. And I mean, if you don't believe the collective unconscious, then just think about a riot. A riot's the easiest way to understand this idea because what a riot is it's a protest where someone throws a chair and then everyone becomes violent. Like what is it in human beings that snaps? It's some shared thought. It's something that springs up in all of us at the same time. It's a very weird idea. Like you can take it either very materialistically, like you're affected by your society, you're affected by your upbringing, you're affected by what you're told to be from a young age, or it could be something so expansive that it's like there's some shared consciousness between all human beings. And that would be more of a Spinoza um take on it. That would be more of a religious take on it. But I mean, I think it's a little bit of both at the same time. Okay, that's good that you're trying to fix your sleep, dude. I really need to do that next. That's like the next thing I need to do. Because like my energy is all over the place. It's so frustrating. Like I want to do things and then I'm just like I'm zapped right now.
It is composed of contents that could have been conscious, or that once were conscious, but which we have intentionally or unintentionally relegated to an unconscious state. Some elements of the personal unconscious are events we have simply forgotten about, or experiences that were not significant enough to register in conscious awareness. while other elements of the personal unconscious were repressed from consciousness due to their distressing nature or their incompatibility with our desired self image. Or, as Jung explains, the personal unconscious contains everything forgotten or repressed or otherwise subliminal that has been acquired by the individual consciously or unconsciously. This material has an unmistakably personal stamp. The unconscious, however, is not solely a depository of repressed, suppressed, or forgotten contents from our past.
So what he's about to say is the collective unconscious, and he's going to say something similar to what I just said. Jung is not necessarily sold on any one of his theories. Um, Several different occasions he's given several different definitions. So I think it would be irresponsible not to combine all of these because I think it's somewhat answered in the three, four times he defined this.
It also contains contents that are innate, rather than personally acquired, and which are a product of the history of our species rather than of our personal history. Or, as Jung writes, this personal unconscious
So a good example of this is a natural fear for snakes and spiders. There's no snakes and no spiders where I live, but like I was afraid of them as a child. Like where does that come from? There's something like fundamental that we we can't quite get over. There's the idea that we're born a blank slate, but it's not quite true. We're always bound to some order of things, bound to some images, bound to some set belief systems. You heard of egregores? No, I don't know what that is.
rests upon a deeper layer, which does not derive from personal experience and is not a personal acquisition but is inborn. This deeper layer I call the collective unconscious. I have chosen the term collective because this part of the unconscious is not individual but universal. In contrast to the personal psyche, it has
There's also different layers of the collective unconscious. There's the worldwide collective unconscious, which shares the basically origins of all of us. And then there's the more cultural one, and then there's the more family one. So you can see this in layers of society. Like, think about it like this: like, not all people in one country are the same religion. So these people all have different images, different archetypes that kind of control what it is they're going to become, what it is that they are going to live their lives off of, the morals, the values, the things that they're shooting for. And there's also somewhat of a homogeny between these people as well because they're in the same nation. And then you take this worldwide globally, there's people that across the world all have the same ideas, and it doesn't really make sense. Like why is Bushido very similar to chivalry? Why are these codes of honor for soldiers so similar if they really weren't connected? And that's the point of it. I can't believe
contents
your
and modes of
age.
behavior that are more or less the same everywhere and in
How
all
could you just when
individuals.
human?
Jung called the contents of the collective unconscious the archetypes. The archetypes, he explains, are universal and inherited patterns which, taken together, constitute the structure of the unconscious.
Think of them as symbols, think of them as feelings, think of them as images. That's the easiest way to understand archetypes. It's what we shoot to be, what we aspire to be. So I know we all have our definition of a hero. For some people, it's Superman. For some people, it's Spider-Man. For others, it's a firefighter, a police officer. We all have these different images that we base our moral judgments off of, and this is the idea that he's talking about here.
Each of us is born with a set of archetypes, just as we are born with a set of bodily organs. And just as the organs predispose us to certain forms of physical interaction with our environment, the archetypes predispose us to certain forms of mental interaction, that is, certain patterns of psychic experience in the face of life's challenges. The archetypes, explains Jung, are the forms or riverbeds along which the current of psychic life has always flowed.
So, an interesting idea about archetypes is this is why revolutions fail. This is why people will always stay with the status quo. It's because they have these images that guide them. They have these images that will always put them down a path. And the moment that you try to change things is there's the resistance. There's a want to cling to these old ideas because these old ideas are guiding us to be what we believe is correct, what we believe is just, what we believe is the most fair and right way to do things. And it's very interesting to see today. There's almost a movement to destroy the old archetypes. There's almost a movement to destroy these ideas and replace them with something new. But I just don't. I just don't think it's going to work. I don't think human beings work that way. And I mean, interestingly enough, if you look at the French Revolution, this is what they try to do. Basically, they tried to destroy all Christian symbolism. They tried to destroy any connection with any sort of past image, any sort of past ideal, and replace it with something new, and it failed miserably. I mean, Robespierre was the guy that really started it, and he was eventually sent to the guillotine under his own regime. So, very interesting stuff. Oh, okay, that's an interesting idea.
Jung often referred to the archetypes as the psychic equivalent to the instincts. The instincts unconsciously pattern our physical response to stimuli, while the archetypes pattern our psychological and emotional response.
I was saying
Or, as
this
Jung
like five
explains,
minutes ago. Think of like how everyone's afraid of spiders, everyone's afraid of snakes. There's a natural instinct to be afraid of these things
the
that we all
inborn
kind
mode
of
of
share.
acting has long been known as instinct, and for the inborn mode of psychic apprehension, I have proposed the term archetype. Jung believed that for much of humanity's history, we were primarily guided by the unconsciousness of our instincts and archetypes. Consciousness, on the other hand, is a relatively recent phenomenon, and it was from the unconscious that consciousness arose. Or, as Jung writes, the psyche is not of today. Its ancestry goes back many millions of years. Individual consciousness is only the flower and the fruit of a
So think of animals, they're not really conscious, they're not really aware. They kind of live out of instinct. They do things because they have certain set needs, certain set desires. Like think of a dog that will like risk everything for one treat, and if they're good then they'll get unlimited treats, but because they see the bag on the table and they see an opportunity, they'll try to eat as many as possible. Like it's like going against your own interests when you act out of instinct. And it's almost like consciousness is a higher level of thinking. Consciousness is something that's beyond other species except man.
season, sprung from the perennial rhizome beneath the earth. Or, as he explains in volume 18 of his collected works, the unconscious is the basis and precondition of all consciousness. It is psychic life before, during, and after consciousness. Why consciousness emerged from the unconscious is one of life's great mysteries, and much debate surrounds this question. But what is undeniable is that when it did emerge, it dramatically changed the trajectory of our species. Consciousness transformed us from an animal guided by the surety of instincts and archetypes to a species that can doubt, question, and reflect. Or, as Bernardo Kastrup writes in Decoding Jung, instinctual animals face no dilemmas or difficult choices. Instead, instinct always provides them with.
See, this is the juxtaposition I feel like we're at right now, though. I feel like human beings think they've evolved past instinct. Human beings think they've evolved past intuition. And it's a very weird idea because the mind has made some justifications for the greatest evil that has ever happened in this world. And yet we want to trust the mind instead of our hearts, instead of our instincts, instead of our intuition. And I think we're coming to the juxtaposition today where there's a big loss of faith in science, a big loss of faith in rigidity, and a return to the unconscious, a return to the spirit, a return to our gut feelings about things. And I think it's a good thing because I mean you see in Brave New World, Brave New World is literally a horrific creation of Aldous Huxley's mind, but it's almost being reflected in the day to day. There's almost these decisions that put technology, put progress, put advancement at the juxtaposition of human, at the juxtaposition of an individual and what it means to be an individual. And I think we're going to be faced with these questions very, very soon because we're at a day and age where technology is getting so good that we could dramatically alter what it means to be a human. And it's like, is that really the right decision? And I feel like there's a growing movement to kind of go in the opposite direction, and it's interesting to see, and it's interesting to see these collective movements and these collective ideas come to the forefront. I mean, if you're obsessed with Jungian archetypes, it's never been a better time to be alive.
One clear path forward. They don't second guess themselves, regret past choices, or feel anxiety about future predicaments. By operating purely instinctually, they are at one with nature and feel no inner tension. Only we, conscious human beings, do all those things, for as Jung wrote, we have turned away from the certain guidance of instinct and are handed over to fear. Consciousness is what makes us suffer. Or as Jung explains, man started from an unconscious state and has ever striven for greater consciousness. The development of consciousness is the burden, the suffering, and the blessing of mankind.
So this is almost an idea from the fall of man. Think about it like this, like we think of the idea of original sin, we think of the idea of biting from the fruit as a bad thing. Like without Adam and Eve biting from the fruit of knowledge, they would never have experienced any sadness, any pain, any sort of evil in this world, but because they did, then they were forced to do it. And it's almost a gift and a curse because ignorance is bliss, but to live your life in ignorance and not know the full truth is also a curse as well. There are a ton of people that are taken advantage of every single day because of their ignorance. And to have consciousness and to cultivate it for the good is going to be a painful process, but at the end of the journey, you are much better equipped for the world. You're much better equipped to live a great life. You're much better equipped to not succumb to wicked and evil people, but at the same time, it comes with great sacrifice. It comes with great pain. It comes with constantly questioning what it means to be alive, constantly questioning what's the purpose and the meaning behind things. And it's only at the end of a very long and arduous journey that these answers are even apparent to us, but most people never get to this point. Most people stay stuck in the same consciousness, the same state, the same existence for their entire lives because it's much easier to be comfortable than it is to change. Even if the situation is horrible, even if the situation is bad, it is much easier to stay the same and blame the world than look in the mirror and say, I am the root cause of all my suffering. I am the root cause of all my issues.
While consciousness paves the way for suffering, it also grants us immense power. Unconscious processes help us react to life and survive in familiar environments, but consciousness helps us deal with the new, navigate unfamiliar situations, and manipulate the world in novel ways. Consciousness allows us to think flexibly, to focus on a single problem for an extended period of time, to anticipate future possibilities, to plan, and to ruminate on past events. The power of consciousness, in other words, has created an animal that can adapt to the world like no other. Or as Jung notes, the essence of conscious processes is adaptation. But consciousness does more than magnify our ability to adapt to the conditions of the world. It also shapes how we experience the world. For we can, to a degree, choose what occupies the spotlight of our awareness and what we focus on.
Think about it like this. We can all focus on everything going wrong in our life, and all we will see is endless wrong. You will always have problems, you always have things go wrong. Even the richest, most successful people in the world have these issues, if not more. But we can also focus on the good things. Like when was the last time you took time out of your day to say, "Wow, my family's amazing. Wow, my family really supports me. Wow, these people in my life are really awesome. Wow, I can't believe I got this opportunity at this place, and it's really setting me up for a great future." Like it's very weird to me that like we will understand the concepts of conscious, we'll understand the concept of how our focus shapes more of what we see, and we won't direct that to something more positive.
Sculpts our experiential world. We can also deploy our conscious attention in a variety of ways. We can focus it in a broad or narrow manner, or in an engaged or disengaged manner. Different modes of consciousness deployed to different objects in the inner
I'll be
or
right back. Okay. Oh man, I was training jujitsu yesterday. My rib popped, and it's like I feel like I'm out of breath. So my bad if I'm like breathing heavy. Oh man, it's rough right now. It's even hard to sit. It's so uncomfortable. Yeah, let's get back to this video. I hope. What am I streaming for? Hopefully, I have enough energy. Yeah, I should. I've only been streaming 30 minutes. I should be good to finish this video. I sped it up even more so that I can get through it.
or outer world create drastically different forms of experience. Or as Ian McGilchrist wrote in The Matter with Things, attention is the manner in which our consciousness is disposed towards whatever else exists. The choice we make of how we dispose our consciousness is the ultimate creative act. It renders the world what it is. Or as Jung notes,
Think of confirmation bias. Robert Anton Wilson has one of my favorite quotes on this idea. What the thinker thinks, the prover proves. Your mind will think things and wish to see things in a certain way, and then you will begin to bend over backwards to see these things. So the easiest one to understand is like people that believe in astrology. Whenever they see something that confirms their belief of astrology, then immediately it's proof of astrology. And they'll begin to see more and more and more and more and more of that. It's pure confirmation bias. It's purely because it's what they're focusing on, and they will begin to see it through this lens. It's the same thing as people that see things through an ideology. Think of everyone that's blaming all of these movies failing because there's certain politics in it. It's like that's why these people think these movies are failing. It's not because of streaming, it's not because of all these other things, it's solely because of these certain narratives. It's not because these industries are creatively bankrupt and they couldn't tell a good story no matter what. It's simply because there's politics involved. Like you know what I mean? It goes with everything. Everything in this world, everything that we observe is seen through our own lens. And Robert Anton Wilson has another great quote. Every person has a belief system. BS. Don't believe anyone's BS. Don't believe your own BS. I think that's the greatest way to go through life. Like, if you can see where you're getting things wrong and you can see where other people are getting things wrong, then you won't fall for anything. And that's really the sad reality of the world. Like, we're all falling for each other's bullshit all day long.
the world itself becomes a reflection of the psyche. In addition to rendering the world what it is, the psyche also renders our personality what it is. How we dispose our consciousness, what we are conscious of, what we leave in the darkness of the unconscious, and our ability, or lack thereof, to connect to the archetypes of the collective unconscious are the prime factors that shape who we are. To change our personality, therefore,
So think of what it means to be a man in this world. That's what he's talking about. Our archetypes direct what our um what our life becomes, what our psyche decides to create as a personality, decides to create and push out into the world. It's purely what we base what we view our role in society to be that we become. And these ideas are formed by things that are kind of beyond our own control. They kind of are determined by the society we live in, the upbringing we have, and everything that goes to shape the experience and what it means to be this definition of this image you have in your head.
Jung believed we must change our relationship with the unconscious. For if we cognitively connect to, reflect on, and integrate into conscious awareness elements of the unconscious, we broaden the scope of consciousness, change the manner in which we dispose it, and move toward the ideal of psychological health, which Jung called wholeness. The unconscious contents made an essential contribution to the completion of my personality, wrote Jung in his autobiography. The first step in tapping into the powers and potentialities of the unconscious requires that we shine the light of awareness on elements of the personal unconscious, specifically the ones we have repressed due to the belief
So what he's talking about repression, it's the ideas, the parts of yourself that you haven't let be shown. So like I know it's like one of the tropes that girls are like, who hurt you? Oh, why don't men cry? Like all these things. And it's like there's a joke about this, but there's also a certain element of truth in this that there's the idea that like you can't be vulnerable as a man. There's the idea that you can't be expressive as a man. And it's because of this that there's such a deep I don't know if the word's hatred, like a deep like lack of purpose for most men. It's because they're neglecting a fundamental aspect of themselves. Their shadow is full of creativity. It's full of creative expression, And until they let these forces out, it bubbles into other facets of your life. So like for some people, it could bubble out through anger, rage, all of these more negative emotions. For other people, it could be something that continually holds them back, something that makes them depressed because they're not being who they should be. Um, think of repression as basically when you were a child growing up, you were told to sit still in class, and because of this, you developed a nervous tick, and it's like an unconscious force that makes you want to shake your leg whenever you're sitting still. It's the need for your body to move, but you not allowing it to move that develops and manifests in this symptom. It's very weird when you start looking at your characteristics and what you really like about yourself. And then you start understanding that like I haven't been allowing this side of myself to be free. And when you allow this side of yourself to be free, then you can be free as an individual. Then you could be free and not carrying any baggage with you, not carrying anything that makes you in any way dissatisfied with who you are in this world. Because if you integrate every aspect of yourself, then you're a happy and whole person. You don't need anything else. This is basically what Plato said in Know Thyself. This is what most philosophers say, and the idea of finding out who you really are and then pursuing that. Emerson, Nietzsche's idea of self-overcoming, the Ubermensch. These things are all in every single philosophy that has any sort of credibility.
That they were of a disagreeable nature. These elements, which are often weaknesses and character flaws, Jung called the shadow side of our personality. The shadow is among the most accessible parts of the unconscious, as its elements were at one time conscious. For most people, their personal shadow can be revealed through honest self reflection and a willingness to recognize that we are never as moral or virtuous as we like to believe. Or, as Jung wrote, with a little self criticism, one can see through the shadow. Very few people take the step of confronting.
So it's seeing yourself honestly. It's seeing yourself for who you really are. It's seeing your life and recognizing you are partly, if not wholly, to blame for you not liking your life. Because if you just faced all your fears, if you just stopped procrastinating, if you just started actually representing yourself as who you were, no matter what other people do, if you have that authenticity, if you have that righteousness, you will be happy. And that's really what Jung is talking about. It's like we allow other people to control who we are, and most of the times we don't even like these people. Most of the time we would rather be ourselves, yet we conform for the fear of not fitting in.
The shadow and instead continue to deny their flaws and weaknesses. But denial of the shadow does not make our faults disappear. It allows them to operate outside of our control. It is, therefore, far better to accept our weaknesses and faults and, in the process, temper their negative effects on our life.
Think about it like this: if you can't recognize your shadow, then it will forever rule you. If you can't recognize the parts of yourselves that you're not fulfilling, then they will forever be fulfilled in darker and evil ways, and in particular when you lose your temper. Think of people that are like super nice, super generous, all of these things. The moment they get drunk is the moment their true side comes out because that's really who they are. They might be nice, they might be, maybe a little passive aggressive when they're sober. When they're drunk, they're an asshole because that's the true side of themselves. But it's not really the true side of themselves, it's just a warped side of themselves. It's a wicked side of themselves because it's a side that has not been developed. It's a side that has not been integrated. Think of when you're in traffic and someone cuts you off and you're screaming, cursing, saying all these things to the other person. That is your shadow expressing all of the anger that you feel for your life, all of the anger that you have not expressed, all of the emotions that have not been expressed through any sort of productive activity. When you recognize the shadow, you recognize that it's just misplaced energy, just misplaced emotion. Like the easiest example is when you go through a breakup, you could either have it break you down, you can either have it destroy you, or it could become something that makes you into a bigger, stronger person. It's like whenever I feel some sort of heartbreak, whenever I feel some sort of downturn, like I can either sit there and wallow in my sadness or I can do something to get myself out of that state. I can do something with that energy, with that pain, with that emotion, with that sadness. So like I can go to the gym or I can start a new project or I can write something or I can find some way of expressing what needs to be expressed so that it does not hold in my mind, so it does not come out in a bad way later on because I think this is a Freud quote. Unexpressed emotions don't go away. They lie dormant and come out in different ways.
Or, as Jung explains, If one can accept one's sin, one can live with it. If one cannot accept it, one has to suffer the inevitable consequences. Work with his psychiatry patients led Jung to recognize another benefit of confronting the contents of the personal unconscious. Often we repress strengths of our character that we were mistakenly led to believe were weaknesses due to a poor upbringing.
So for me, one of my biggest strengths is creativity, and it's something I haven't allowed to be shown until like this year. And it's like once you start finding room for these traits, then you start finding your happiness again. I'll give you a little hint. I'll give you a little solution. All depression is disalignment from who you really are with who you are today. Who you really are is begging to be let out, and your soul hurts. Your soul is depressed. Your soul is deflated because it is not being represented in this world. That's what it is.
Or corrupt social values. Shining a light on the personal unconscious allows us to integrate these elements back into our conscious sense of self, and in the process develop a greater personality. The personal unconscious, explains Jung, is really something very relative, and its circle can be restricted and become so much narrower that it touches zero. It is quite thinkable that a man can develop his consciousness to such an extent that he can say, I am a man, I count nothing human alien to me. A third reason for confronting the personal unconscious is that only after we descend into this region of the psyche can we mine the deeper elements of the collective unconscious, or as Jung wrote, this personal unconscious must always be dealt with first, that is, made conscious. Otherwise, the gateway to the collective unconscious cannot be opened.
Okay, so what Jung is saying here is you can't deal with the problems of the world until you deal with the problems of yourself. You can never see the darker and deeper forces at play until you master your own demons. Jung also said something very interesting about going to the depths of hell to confront your darkness and bring it to the light. And that is one of the most profound statements you'll ever hear. That's one of the most profound allegories you'll ever hear. And I am going to explain this, and I'm probably just going to end the video now because it's not really getting anywhere. But basically, what Jung is saying in this statement is we all have the capacity for evil. We all have the capacity to do wrong. We've all done wrong. It's only the people that embrace this capacity to do wrong and are aware of it and are cognizant of it and use this for good, use these traits for good. Hatred is just misplaced love. Hatred is the same expression as love, it's just on the polar opposite side. So whatever hate you give out to the world, you could give out in love. It's transmuting your negative characteristics into good ones. It's turning the things that you have into blessings. Think of people that have obsessive disorders. The obsessive disorders are detrimental, but they can also be positive. Like I'm not saying like OCD is a great thing, but like the same things that make people obsessed with drinking is the same thing that make people obsessed with success. And it's finding outlets, it's finding ways to express these negative characteristics in good ways where your soul can be healed, where your soul can be purified.
Tapping into the
What's
collective
up,
unconscious
Zachariah?
grants
How's
us
everything?
access to the deep wisdom of our species past. Jung believed that innumerable archetypes exist that can guide us through the common challenges that we face in our shared humanity. Some of the most common archetypes include the archetype of the mother, father, youth, old age, and hero, religious archetypes that can help us connect to the divine, as well as what Jung called the archetype of the self, which facilitates the attainment of psychological wholeness. Although the change
What do you think about having reverence for certain people? I don't think it's wrong. I think it's wrong to idolize people. I think you can take people's ideas and run with them, but when you try to be someone else, then you lose yourself. And that's the one thing most people don't get. To idol worship is to deny your greatness. To look to anyone in this world and say I want to be exactly like them is to not understand how great you can become. And that's the one thing. It's like anything. Everything can be good and bad. Anything taken to an extreme is always bad, but you can always learn something from other people. You can learn something from even your worst enemies, even the dumbest people you know, you can learn something from. And that's really the mindset I think you should take and focus on. But I don't know if that makes any sense. If that makes sense or if it doesn't make sense, let me know.
changing situations of life must appear infinitely various to our way of thinking, writes Jung. Their possible number never exceeds certain natural limits. They fall into more or less typical patterns that repeat themselves over and over again. The archetypal structure of the unconscious corresponds to the average run of events.
Oh, religious figures or priests. I mean, the thing with religious figures is I'm not really sold on them. Like, why do I need you to tell me what to believe if the Bible says the kingdom of heaven is within you? Why am I denying what the Bible says for what you say? Same thing with Taoism. It's the same thing with Buddhism. Like, that's the whole idea of Zen Buddhism. It's like, if you see Buddha on the road, kill him, meaning kill all idols. There's no point in trying to be anyone else. If you become yourself, that's enough.
When, therefore, a
But I
dismissive
don't
situation
I don't I don't put anyone above me. I don't put anyone below me. If someone has something interesting to say, then I'll listen. But if I think someone's limiting me, then I'm not gonna listen. It's that simple. I don't really appeal to authority. I don't really in any way curtail my opinions for what someone else says, unless they have a good logical reason for me to think otherwise. I think the internet has usurped the collective unconscious or personal unconscious to a certain extent. To a certain extent, it's globalized it and homogenized it. It's like, think about it like this, like our worldviews are shaped by like the reality tunnel we're in, whatever news feed we're in, whatever news sources the people that we consume their media is in. So I think in a certain way it's affected it, but I think it's made it more homogenized than it's ever been because it's either left hand side, right hand side. There's no in between. There's no room for people that are in any way not affiliated with one side or the other because that's simply how algorithms work. Algorithms drive you to the most digestible, the most approachable form of the content, which is always the mass movement style of things. They're there to provide guidance, but yeah. Well, the thing, this is Nietzsche's criticism of the church. Nietzsche's criticism of the church is the church became exactly what it was against. The church became something that it was founded to destroy. And what it became was a place of telling you what to believe, telling you what to worship, and forgetting the original ideas and embodying the life of Christ. Like the Bible says that the kingdom of heaven is within you. The Bible also says you can do everything that I've done. Jesus prays to God before every miracle. What is that telling you to do? It's telling you to do the same thing. What is the symbolism of the crucifixion? The symbolism of the crucifixion is literally dying for the sins of the world and being reborn better, being reborn perfect, being reborn full. It's the same thing in Buddhism. Buddhism, overcoming karma is taking the pain of the world and turning it into something good, turning it into something positive. All the symbolism is all the same, and these messages are all there. But these messages that can give you a powerful transformation are not given to you because you need your serving of God through another person. You need to give money before you can get what you need from God. It's very counterintuitive. And I'm not saying this is all priests, I'm not saying this is all institutions, but this is the fundamental failing of any mass movement. It is that it conforms the beliefs of the individual for the sake of the collective. And this is the exact opposite of what you should be doing if you're trying to get true enlightenment, if you're trying to get true um, people finding their real path.
arises, the corresponding archetype will be constellated in the unconscious. Its passing over into consciousness is felt as an illumination, a revelation, or a saving idea. Sometimes a pivotal stage in our development, such as standing on the precipice of a new chapter in life or the facing of a great challenge, will spontaneously constellate the needed archetypes in the unconscious. When this occurs, an individual is gripped by emotionally charged ideas and intense impulses of attraction and aversion that guide him toward the aims of the archetype. The problem, however, is that modern man's mode of consciousness impedes the spontaneous activation of the archetypes.
Just think of this synchronicity, think of a gut feeling. This is what he's talking about. when something drastic changes and we're spurred on to do something normally we wouldn't do this thing, but because this event has happened, we have nothing to lose. And this is usually the biggest parts of transformation in our entire lives.
Whether it be our compulsive use of technology, which narrows our attentional field and blocks out awareness of the contents emerging from the unconscious, our obsession with our self image and social validation, which leaves the shadow blocking the door to the collective unconscious, or the lack of participation in activities that can broaden conscious awareness, such as art, religion, or time spent in nature, modern man is dangerously disconnected from the collective unconscious. This function of the unconscious becoming conscious works automatically.
Basically, the unconscious is formed through conformity. Everything you do that conforms, that's against your own interest, that's against your own desires, creates the unconscious.
But, owing to the notorious atrophy of instinct in civilized man, it is often too weak to swing his one sided orientation of consciousness in a new direction against the pressures of society. Therefore, artificial aids have always been needed to bring the healing forces of the unconscious into play. To connect to the unconscious, modern man needs to strengthen the symbol producing function of the psyche, for it is through the manifestation of symbols, or what amount to psychic images thrown up by the unconscious, that we become aware of the archetypes, and when a group of these symbols are constellated in consciousness, they point to the meaning and purpose of the archetype. A term or image is
So another good example of the archetype is what traits do you look for in a partner, girlfriend or boyfriend? I don't know who's in chat, I don't know makeup, but what you look for is always determined somewhat by your experience. So for me, I look for someone that's supportive, I look for someone that's nice, I look for someone that's caring and compassionate, and someone that can balance me. And this is directly related to my own experience, and this image, this thing that I'm searching for has been created by my relationship with my mother, my relationship with women in the past, and everything that I've consumed, every piece of content, everything that I've experienced, everything that I've seen has gone to shape this archetypal image. And these images are the things that control you. These images are the things that push you to be a certain way and act in certain ways.
symbolic, explains Jung, when it means more than it denotes or expresses. It has a wider unconscious aspect, an aspect that can never be precisely defined or fully explained. For example, Jung believed that the mandala symbol was generated by the archetype of psychological wholeness and signified unity and totality. Often, this symbol would manifest during times of psychic chaos or confusion and help return order to a fragmented psyche. Jung even noted that one of his patients, who was bordering on a psychosis, resorted to spontaneously drawing mandalas, and by externalizing in art an internal archetypal symbol, she brought the symbol to conscious awareness.
So this symbolizes wholeness because a circle's whole. A circle has no rigidity. The mind doesn't like rigidity. The mind likes flow. The mind likes never endingness because this is the true nature of life. Everything that makes you up once made something else up and will soon make something else up. It's a circle. It's a circle of life, like the Lion King.
And this helped return her to psychological health. The symbols of an archetype, therefore, when manifest in consciousness, act as an agent of self transformation, and sometimes the effect of these symbols is so powerful they force us down a life path we would not have considered prior to the constellation of the archetype. Whenever the archetype clothes itself in suitable symbols, which is not
Think of when someone makes a grave act of being heroic. When someone's heroic after not being heroic for their entire lives, what this really is them recognizing the archetype and embodying it. So think of people that jump on grenades to save their fellow soldiers. That's one of the best examples. Like you take that person out of that scenario, they probably don't do that. But because they were feeling, because they had a gut sense that this is the right thing to do, because they identified themselves with saving others for at the expense of themselves, then they made this decision.
always the case, it seizes hold of the individual in a startling way, creating a condition amounting almost to possession, the consequences of which may be incalculable. One of the best aids for connecting to the collective unconscious is the dream. When we dream, consciousness weakens and creates the ideal situation for the emergence of archetypal symbols. Most people, however, pay little attention to their dreams and quickly forget them soon after waking up. Jung advised that those who wish to connect to the unconscious should record their dreams, reflect on their meaning, and attempt to decipher any symbols that may appear.
So the reason you go to your dreams is because your dreams basically give you an unbiased view about yourself. Your dreams are really the only way to find what it is that you actually want out of life and find these things that would make you happy. So Freud said that your dreams are a form of wish fulfillment. So let's say that your boss yelled at you, and then you have a dream that you yell at your boss. That's you acting out what you want to do. It's usually not that simple. It's usually hidden in some weird um, way. It's usually in some aspect you're yelling at someone, in some aspect you're getting back at someone, in some aspect you're doing something that would be similar to you yelling at your boss, but when you can start to get to the bottom of these ideas, you can start to find out what you really need to do in your life. You can find out the things that you're lacking and the things that you need to start thinking about and integrating into your life so that you can live a more whole and a more conscious life. Because when you bring the darkness to the light, then you can take that darkness and use it for good. But when it's still in the darkness, when you're hiding away from it, when you're not facing it, it will continue to bite you. It will continue to ruin your life. It will continue to do things that are against your own interest. And that is the worst way to live life. Like we are all our worst enemies. We are all actively self-sabotaging ourselves by not living up to who we truly should be. With that said, I have to go. Um, I'm sure he's going to say interesting things in the last 4 minutes of the video. Feel free to watch the rest yourself. With that said, I love you guys so much. Thank you guys so much. Peace out. I will catch you in the next one.